The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, Tokers and Tokets. Welcome to the show. It is Thursday, October 17th, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Very glad you could join us today, and I hope you've checked out our new website at 420radio.org, now mobile friendly. Also available as podcast downloads for your iTunes or your favorite podcast reader. You can get all the feed information at 420radio.org, and there are special podcast feeds available only to our VIP listeners. Become a VIP by visiting 420radio.org/donate. For as little as $9.99 a month, you can get 6 more podcast feeds that are available only to the VIPs, including Toker Talk Radio and all 5 days of our Daily Toker Tunes podcast. Speaking of Daily Toker Tunes, Bago Schwago will be calling in today from Arizona. We've got some music for you today from Peter Marr, the Super Weed song. So check that out at 20 after. Also on today's show, it is the time for our Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment. We do every other Thursday. This week, we've got a return guest, Dwayne Sessom, a former deputy sheriff in Lawton, Oklahoma, to talk about why cops say legalized drugs. In our Radical Rant segment, we're going to take a look at one of my least favorite subjects, student drug testing, and how private schools now in Ohio are drug testing not just the kids that go out for extracurriculars or sports, but all incoming students and why they can get away with that. We'll talk about that in the Radical Rant. In Behind the Headlines today, we're going to take a look at Mendocino County in the Emerald Triangle of California, which pioneered a zip tie program to help protect medical marijuana growers. Now the feds are subpoenaing records from that program, and Mendocino has given in. We'll tell you how much they've given over to the feds in those subpoenas when we take the Behind the Headlines right after our 420 Radio News. We got all sorts of headlines in the 420 Radio News as well, including a look at the most recent news that we've heard from drug testing labs. We'll talk more about drug testing, the Massachusetts scandal, and a ruling in New York State that allows workers to sue for faulty drug testing. Then stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We got a video from the Ed Foreman Show featuring our friend Snap and 2 other ladies from Georgia. We'll talk about a student in Massachusetts who got busted for being a good Samaritan, and a look at the Above the Influence ads from the Office of National Drug Control Policy in partnership for a drug-free America.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you don't just want any attorney. You want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The Law Office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Lauren Vasquez knows the details of California marijuana law from both a personal and professional angle. Lauren Vasquez rose from the ranks of college normal activist to become one of the Bay Area's best marijuana lawyers. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your Fired Up Lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. The number again is 855-MMJ-LAWS, 855-665-5297 for your Fired Up Lawyer, Lauren Vasquez. Lauren Vasquez is an activist attorney you can trust. Call today. Hey, Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED Lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting.
This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, October 17th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Can drug labs be sued for faulty drug tests? From USA Today. A ruling last week by New York's highest court, the Court of Appeals, opens the door to civil liability for drug testing companies, which play an essential role in the criminal justice system, but have been largely unaccountable for their test results. State Supreme Courts in Pennsylvania and Kansas have also recognized civil liability for drug labs, specifically in cases where a false positive drug test cost someone a job after it looked like the applicant flunked a drug test. In the New York ruling, the court majority stressed that the consequences of a false positive drug test are, quote, potentially life-altering, end quote. Even though the drug lab company was just a contractor for the county probation department, the court said the lab still had a duty to perform the drug test to the highest professional standards, which it did not. The ruling is another mark against forensic labs. Last year in Massachusetts, investigators discovered that the state crime lab had falsified thousands of drug test results and regularly communicated with the district attorney's office, which heavily influenced the results of many forensic tests. So far, 330 people have been released from prison based on evidence that the crime lab and negligent chemist Annie Dukin handled the evidence in their cases. Another 1,100 cases have been dismissed or not prosecuted because of tainted evidence from the state lab. Dukin is accused of falsifying evidence in as many as 34,000 cases and faces dozens of charges of tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice, and perjury. The state has allocated $30 million for expenses related to the scandal. Colorado pot advocates file unusual campaign finance report from CBS News Denver. An organization that gave away free marijuana cigarettes as a way to protest possible taxes in Colorado has filed an unusual campaign finance report after a watchdog group said the pot qualified as a campaign contribution. The group No Overtaxation reported Tuesday that the joints were worth a total of $1,250 and were paid for by a lawyer funding its campaign. The filing came in response to a complaint from Colorado Ethics Watch, which said the tax opposition group failed to disclose where it got the weed or how much it cost. Colorado Ethics Watch withdrew its complaint. And calculations by 420 Radio News show for the 600 joints that were claimed to be given away at the Denver event, that $1,250 total means each joint was worth about $2.08. Adult charged after children bring pot candy bars to Statesville schools from My Fox 8 in North Carolina. Chocolate laced with drugs showed up at 2 Statesville schools last week. Police say the source is an adult who brought the candy back on a recent trip to California. Mary Blackwelder faces several charges, including maintaining a home to sell marijuana, sale and delivery of marijuana, 2 counts of child abuse, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Statesville police initially arrested a student they say was selling pot-laced candy bars to students at Statesville Middle School. The arrest led them to another kid who was also reportedly selling the candy. The students will not be charged. The investigation led to Blackwelder, who was selling the candy out of her home. She is out of jail and facing a court date next Thursday. 6 federally charged with marijuana distribution connected to Milwaukee area McDonald's restaurants, from Fox6now.com. The DEA on Wednesday, October 16th, announced that 6 individuals had been federally charged with drug conspiracy and money laundering. The owner of 3 Northside McDonald's restaurants is one of the 6 charged in the case. Through 15 search warrants, officials were able to confiscate several pounds of high-grade marijuana, 11 firearms, and approximately $90,000 in U.S. currency. Officials say the defendants were involved in a drug trafficking organization that obtained large quantities of marijuana from Northern California and distributed within the Milwaukee area. The defendants also used addresses in the Milwaukee area to receive marijuana shipments through U.S. mail. Officials say certain conspirators, including the owner, are alleged to have used 3 Milwaukee area McDonald's restaurants to fund their drug trafficking activities, conceal their drug proceeds, and promote their drug trafficking activities. With only 1 medical marijuana dispensary in New Jersey, Grandma resorts to buying street pot, from Pix11.com. Betty, not her real name, is a self-proclaimed lawbreaker. After being told her rare form of liver cancer would kill her in a few months, the 70-year-old tried filling a medical marijuana prescription in New Jersey but got nowhere. The state has 3 medical marijuana dispensaries, but only 1 is operating. Betty chose to break the law, and a family member bought her a pound of street pot. This has been your 420 Radio News for Thursday, October 17th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines to take a look at Mendocino County's groundbreaking zip tie program, now facing federal subpoenas. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio.
Let 'em bring in the beat.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let 'em bring in the beat.
420radio.org presents Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation, featuring Radical Russ Belville live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific with replays at 7 p.m. Pacific, right here exclusively on 420radio.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And in today's story, I saw an update on the Mendocino County zip tie program. And unfortunately, the county has surrendered medical marijuana grow records to the feds. Officials in Mendocino County have complied with a federal subpoena to hand over records related to its discontinued medical marijuana registration system. Previous agreements with the feds allowed the county to redact personal information from the request, but the new subpoena has officials turning over, quote, a limited number of unredacted county records, end quote, reports the Sonoma Press-Democrat. When Mendocino County began its zip tie registration program, it was hailed as an innovative way to register medical marijuana growers. Sheriff Tom Allman was seeking a way to protect the rights of legitimate patients under California's Compassionate Use Act who wish to grow up to 25 plants for their medical use. The problem is that the county is part of the legendary Emerald Triangle, where non-medical growers produce cannabis crops for export to the national recreational market. The zip tie program began in March of 2010. PBS's Frontline reported on the program that allowed individual growers to purchase up to 25 labeled zip ties from the county for $25 apiece. Collectives could get up to 99 zip ties for $50 apiece, provided they supplied a $1,500 special permit and submitted to $500 monthly inspections. Those ties would be affixed to the plants, so when sheriffs were called to a marijuana grow, they could easily identify the legal medical marijuana grows. Patients and collectives were protected. The county made some money, about $800,000, and the sheriffs could focus on illegal marijuana grows. Well, that all ended in February 2012. Federal prosecutors warned Mendocino County it was in violation of federal drug laws. Of course, every county and every state that allows for medical marijuana is in violation of those laws. But to the feds, Mendocino was not just tolerating medical grows, but openly facilitating them. Rather than risk the expense of a court battle, the county ended the zip tie program that by all accounts was remarkably popular and successful. Now, Mendocino County has complied with a federal subpoena to relinquish redacted records from that nearly 2 years, relinquish unredacted records, from that nearly 2 years of permitting medical grows. Last October, a grand jury requested all the records, including the identities of every grower who participated. County Counsel Thomas Parker resisted that subpoena. He was concerned about the privacy of the more than 90 growers who registered for the zip ties. In April, the feds agreed to allow the county to redact the personal information from every grow record, including the names of the growers and the addresses and the parcel numbers of the grow. But the latest subpoena from September 25th requests unredacted records from a more limited set of those grows. And Parker wrote in his statement, quote, the Board of Supervisors directed that the records be provided to the federal grand jury as requested by the subpoenas, end quote. Which records got released? Well, federal law prohibits the county from mentioning which records were turned over, and they cannot even mention whether or not they contain any personal information. This is terrible news from anyone who's been trying to come up with a reasonable way of regulating medical marijuana in their state. When the Mendocino zip tie program first started, the only blowback they got on this was from paranoid growers who said, I don't want to register for those zip ties because I know it's going to get used against me. I don't want to be on some list somewhere. And, officials had to say, no, we'll protect your privacy. We'll make sure that your privacy is protected. Well, it turns out those growers weren't so paranoid, were they? Turns out that when push came to shove, Mendocino County is handing over the privacy information on those particular growers. And that just gives more fuel to the next set of people that don't want to comply with any sort of registration or licensing structure with respect to a medical or recreational program, so long as the federal government maintains a prohibition on marijuana that is at odds with the states. We've seen that memo, that the August 29th memo that said that as long as we follow the 8 priorities, the recreational states, Washington and Colorado, won't get busted. But we also saw the Ogden memo that said if the medical marijuana states followed their rules, they wouldn't get busted. And Obama went and led more raids against medical marijuana than any presidential administration. So you got to forgive the marijuana community if it's getting tougher and tougher to believe any of the promises about not getting busted when they keep getting broken. This is why the federal prohibition has to end. It won't work at the state level. Now, that's not to say you don't legalize at the state level, but that's just a step, people. That's just forcing the government's hand to realize that we've got to end this prohibition on a federal level before anyone can use marijuana and still feel free about it. 100% free. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Bago Schwago and our Daily Toker Tuesday.
If he said he swam to China, he would send to South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com and follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up.
On the road again. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Friends, it's time we legalize the responsible use of marijuana and stop treating marijuana smokers like criminals. We're destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of good, hardworking Americans every year in this country for no good reason. There's absolutely nothing wrong with smoking pot. For more information on how you can help legalize marijuana, please contact NORML at norml.org.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Groovin' Thursday, featuring rap, hip-hop, soul, and funk music. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, folks, it's about 23 after, and it's time for some tunage. We got Bago Schwago on the line. How you doing, my man? Are you there, Bago Schwago? Can you hear us? Well, this is strange. We're getting nothing from Bago Schwago, but he's connected on the line there. I am hoping you can hear me okay, but we're not hearing you, and you're unmuted. But let me try that again. Let's see if we're getting anything there. Can you hear us, Bago Schwago?
Can you hear me now?
Ah, there you go.
There we go.
Got to hit that mute button. Glad to hear you. Glad to hear your voice, though. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Dan. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Looking forward to today's tune. Although I'm looking at the album cover you sent in. It looks like the album is called Con Artest Part 2. Hey, what does Meta World Peace have to do with this?
I can't hear a word what you're saying, Russ. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we're having some sort of internet connection problem here. Yeah, it looks like we're having call quality problems there. Go ahead. If you can hear me, just go ahead with your introduction.
Sure. Okay. So this song was submitted to us by one of the listeners. And this song is actually by a guy by the name of Peter Mayer, but it's not like John Mayer with a Y. It's actually with an H. So it's Maher. And his buddy Eric was superdopebeats.com, and that's SUPR dopebeats.com. Drop the E. Put together this song. They sent it in probably a month or two ago, and it's just been in the mail. And it's a great song. It's got a good beat. It keeps my head nodding, and the chorus will get stuck in your head. And it's called the Super Weed Song, and check them out. It's a good one.
All right, here we go. Peter Mayer with Super Weed Song. You can get this and other downloads as a VIP member at 420 Radio.
Homies, when you're riding, chronic blood.
Nas, low tide, Chinese, Vera Wang. We blow trees like a motherfucking hurricane. With Teo, we keep a blunt lit Kron. He said don't match me, like we had the same shit on. The whole high school class on my ass. They say the boys cash like the bowl packed ash. And I don't even walk around like I'm reckless. Cowboy, Texas, steak and egg breakfast. With the MacBook, writing new material. Had 3 bowls and one of them was cereal. I heard that joke the other day as I smoked my life away, filling guns with bouquets. Touche on that water, Bobby Boucher. Ooh, hey, kiss your daughter, it's a brand new day. Not cool, but I stay with 2 L's and J's. My weed's full of hair like head with toupee.
Here's a weed song for your homies when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed song for your homies when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed.
Me and some homies riding dirty around Smoketown. Everybody know me, I got chronic, might choke clowns. We'll make it big, party hard like movie stars. That's who we are. We roll good, no regular. Got a degree in chronology. Cigarillos, white boys, bonga, bow piece. Call on me to pearl a Dutchie. Smoking on exotic trees with no seeds. Got a strand I call Afghan from overseas. Don't kid with me or my Maui Wowie. Orange Kush, candy cane leaves by the peas. Keep my flow cold so the hoes might freeze. Either way, I'm blowing O's till I'm stone, can't breathe. Mash them back to back till my eyes just won't see. Put on a dope beat while we smoke a dope tree. Cruising with my homies, here's the song we gon' sing.
Song for your homies when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed song for your homies when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed song for your homies when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed song for your homie when you're riding, chronic blowing. Here's a weed song.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
It's quite simple. I'm a very nasty drunk. I get mean. I get loud. I'll tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a stranger. And I'll puke on your shoes. So, if that's the kind of behavior that this culture promotes, fuck it.
Your one-room schoolhouse of choice. Your one-stop freedom shop. It's the Libra Lounge.
Sundays at 3 right here on 420radio.org.
Marijuana and alcohol are the 2 most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book,
Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com.
One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, everybody. 31 past the hour, and we're joined by Dwayne Sessom. He's a former deputy sheriff in Lawton, Oklahoma, also a former corrections officer. And Dwayne, welcome to the show. Oh, let's try that again. Dwayne, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Russ. Good to be here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I have to push the mute button, and then it works a whole lot better.
Okay.
Glad to have you here, though. I was just looking over your career here on the LEAP website, and it points out that you've been involved in law enforcement in one way or another since the age of 23. What was it that made you want to be in law enforcement?
Well, I guess basically I just wanted to help people and try to make a difference in my community, because I've always just been that way. You know, my parents raised me to have good manners and, you know, help the old lady across the street and whatnot. And I've always just liked to help people and be involved in the community. And so that's why I'm with LEAP now.
So your first job at the age of 23 here says you worked as a correction officer for the Comanche County Jail in Lawton, Oklahoma. A county jail in Oklahoma must have given you a lot of insight as to what's going on in this war on drugs, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're in there. The sheriff called it the lion's den, because we were right there in the cells with the prisoners sometimes, and it didn't really take me too long to figure out that a lot of the guys that were in there for, you know, possession of marijuana or small amounts of cocaine or whatever, they weren't really bad guys. They were just people, just like me, and they just were in there because they had broken a law, but they weren't bad guys at all.
Yeah, and we find that these guys who get involved, get caught for marijuana or small quantities of other drugs, then get housed with the guys who really are the bad guys. What kind of effect did that have on those drug inmates?
Well, that's a really good point. There were small time offenders, like such of marijuana, or maybe a guy that had a DUI, thrown in the same cell, you know, with a guy that committed murder, and that really bothered me too, because you're talking about two different kinds of people, and you know, and I have seen, you know, violence, guys that are violent in there that hurt, and actually we had one guy killed when I was working there because he refused to give his food to another guy when he was arrested for DUI. That was really bothersome, because it should never happen. The guy shouldn't have been there, you know, in the cell with a guy that was in for murder, and there were several of them. You know, we had holding cells that had about 20 people in it, and he was put into one of those. So, yeah, that's really wrong. It shouldn't ever happen that way.
Yeah, that's pretty sobering when you hear stuff like that. And, of course, over time, it looks like you've come to realize that this war on drugs wasn't working. Obviously, you're working with LEAP now. But according to your bio here, there's kind of a personal aspect to this as well, where we see how the arrest for a marijuana violation can really wreck someone's life.
Right. This happened after I had already retired from the sheriff's department. I had two teenage sons, and one of them was pulled over, and he and his cousins had a small amount of marijuana, probably maybe 1 or 2 grams left. It's most of it, but they only charged my son because he was the oldest, and he claimed responsibility for it. He said it was his weed. But anyway, what happened is even with the small amount, and he had no prior record whatsoever. The kid had never been in trouble before, and they took his driver's license away for 6 months and charged him $1,000 fine. I mean, it's good that they didn't give him any jail time because he had just turned 18, and they could have put him in jail, but they didn't. But suspending his driver's license for 6 months was devastating because the kid had a job. He paid for his own car insurance and payment, and he couldn't then get back and forth to his job. So I ended up having to take him, or his mother had to take him to work and back every day. And he did actually pay that $1,000 fine by himself from the money he made from work, but it really drained him because, the kid was only making minimum wage. And it's just horrible. I mean, a kid should never go through that. And so that really opened my eyes to the way the system works. And I got to tell you, Oklahoma probably is one of the worst states, if not the worst, when it comes to marijuana arrests and the penalties that they impose.
Yeah, that's something that we've been following here for a while. We reported on your Governor Fallon there signing that bill that can put someone away for life for a second, I think it's a second possession of hash charge. Yeah,
and Oklahoma has a zero tolerance. They also passed the marijuana DUI law, or the THC DUI law, that they can test your blood, urine, or even saliva, and if you have THC or any metabolite of THC, which as you know can last in your body for months sometimes, depending on how much you use. But the point is, you don't even have to be impaired. It can just be in your body, blood, urine, saliva, and they can charge you with DUI. I mean, and that's pretty much akin to having a beer last Saturday and you get pulled over. Today's Thursday, and you get charged for DUI because you drank a beer on the weekend. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And we're speaking with Dwayne Sessom. He's a former deputy sheriff in Lawton, Oklahoma. We had also reported on the case of Patricia Spotted Crow, who got 12 years for dealing like $31 worth of weed. I understand she's out now. But Oklahoma's a tough place. They're not messing around. So how does that affect you trying to spread this word about ending not just prohibition of marijuana, but all drugs and having them regulated? I'm ready to move to Colorado.
I'll bet you are.
Now, another point I wanted to bring up, though, is this with this new law that, the cops are really watching people with Colorado license plates now. And I do still have friends that are in law enforcement, and, so I do hear, what gets told to them, and they were actually told to, look for Colorado license plates because it's illegal in Colorado, and they will, drive here for whatever reason, and they might pull them over and get a DUI arrest out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, it does happen, and I foresee it happening more and more.
Oh, yes. We're going to get profiling for Colorado plates in Wyoming, in Oklahoma. We're already hearing about profiling for Oregon and Washington plates in Idaho and Utah and places like that. So this will be an interesting development as these drug laws change because, again, like you say, you could be doing something completely legal in Denver and a week later be driving to Tulsa and get busted for a DUI.
Right.
That's just...
And that... that just blows my mind. I mean, we're just, it seems like Oklahoma is going backwards. And, most of the other states, 20 plus DC now, have, legalized in some form or another. And Oklahoma's cracking down. It blows my mind. And it does really make it hard for guys like me to speak in public and try to convince people that this is not the way things should be done. Actually, I take that back. Most people do agree with what I say when I speak publicly, but for some reason our legislators do the opposite. So this is a disconnect that I just don't quite understand. I've even talked to Senator Cole, and he didn't really even want to talk about it. I mean, he was nice and cordial, but he just did not want to talk about legalizing marijuana on any level. Pretty much just got the hand.
And this is even for if you bring up medical use, which is usually popular somewhere.
I'm sorry?
I said this happens even bringing up something as benign as medical use for cancer patients. They're still talk to the hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They really don't want to talk about it. And I don't really understand the mentality, I guess, because there are a lot of conservatives in Oklahoma, of course, and just like in Texas, but I think Oklahoma probably is a little bit more conservative still. But I talk to conservatives all the time who agree that medicinal cannabis should be legalized. And, of course, probably 99% of the liberal people that I talk to totally agree with it. But for one reason or another, it's still in vogue to, have this war on drug mentality when you're a legislator. We only have maybe one or two legislators here in Oklahoma that I know of who have even, tried to introduce medicinal marijuana laws, and they're kind of just in a helpless minority right now. So I'm looking at different angles to try to change the status quo right now, because we're just, like I said, we're going backwards, and Mary Fallon is definitely not helping things at all. So.
Yeah. I'd be interested in seeing some of the numbers out of Oklahoma. We just saw that public policy poll come out in Texas, where they found 58%. And even when they broke it down based on Republican or conservative or older, they were finding majority or plurality support for marijuana legalization, or at least decriminalization. I can't imagine that the numbers would be much different in Oklahoma. Do you think there's majority support for at least medical or legal or decrim there?
In my personal experience, absolutely yes, because I honestly, when I talk to people, and even, if they're opposed before I talk to them, usually I've changed their mind after we're done, because a lot of it is just that people lack education. They just really are clueless about the facts, and they're still kind of brainwashed to just say no back in the Reagan era, and all they need is a little bit of education, and they are for it. So I think really that's the biggest issue that I've run into, is just people really aren't educated about it. And they still see marijuana as a bad drug that it should be Schedule 1, and just keep it off keep it away from our kids and whatnot. And then I have to explain to them that, look, the kids are, if you're worried about kids getting marijuana, they're going to have a lot harder time getting it if it's legalized. And it's just like Colorado, it's pretty much like alcohol. So it's going to be harder to get because drug dealers don't ask for an ID.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for helping get that education across the people in one of the toughest states. Like you said, Oklahoma, man, that's some hard work you got ahead of you. And we hope you're there doing it for a while. Thank you, Dwayne Sessom, for joining us here. And we'll talk to you again sometime.
All right. Thank you.
All right. When we come back, we'll have time for a radical rant. We're going to take a look at drug testing and how private schools are now testing all students. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Early.
It's yours?
No,
Your mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must
have what?
Look, Dad, it's not
Where
mine.
did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
You want to legalize it? Call your congressman today. 202-224-3121. It's free, it's easy, and you don't even have to give your name, just your zip code, and they'll hook you up to your congressman. Call 202-224-3121 and tell Congress you support marijuana legalization.
Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. That's what you got to do.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Longtime listeners to the show will know that the whole reason I'm here has to do with drug testing. So whenever there's a drug testing story pops up on the news, I take a little time to talk about it. And today I want to talk about the attitudes that are allowing drug testing to flourish in this country. And it comes to me because of a story I picked out of Cincinnati.com. It was entitled LaSalle to drug test all students. LaSalle being a school, right? And that caught me at first because I thought, wait a minute, didn't the Supreme Court say random suspicionless testing, there's a word, random suspicionless testing of all students was unconstitutional? Don't they have to be involved in extracurriculars or going out for a football team or something? Well, that's true when we're talking about public schools. LaSalle is a private Catholic prep school, all boys prep school in Ohio. So this is information from the school administrators here talking about the test. All students will be tested when they first enroll at the school, and then they will be randomly tested later on. They say, quote, the student will be tested approximately 100 days after a first positive. So if they fail any one of the tests, 100 days later, they'll test them again. Any student who tests positive twice during their career at LaSalle will no longer be permitted to remain as a student. End quote. 2 strikes and you're out at LaSalle. Now, the problem I've got with it, now this is a private school again, so really they're legally allowed to set whatever rules they want to. I just hate the attitudes that allow them to not only get away with doing this, but have many of the parents cheering it on. This was Scott Greiner, Scott Greiner has a son who's a freshman there at LaSalle, said he's proud of the school for taking this stand. He said, quote, it does give students an easy way out. I can say, I get tested. If I fail a test, athletics are gone. My education, who knows? And like my dad said, I'll be in big trouble at home, end quote. All right, this is that theory that if you have the drug testing at school, a kid who would normally want to try drugs, oh gosh, I can't wait to try some drugs, but gosh, Rudy, they're going to drug test me, so I won't. Okay, so that's the theory behind that. Now, LaSalle has secured the services of Psychomedics Corporation, and they're not going to do just average urine testing. They're going to do hair testing. By the way, hair testing much more expensive. Instead of anywhere from $15 to $30 a unit when you're doing the urine testing, it can be $60 to $90 a test when you're doing hair testing. They do this for over 250 schools across the country, by the way, Psychomedics Corporation. Big business. LaSalle said the school will use hair testing rather than body fluids like urine or saliva because compared to analysis of body fluids, hair testing is highly resistant to evasion by adulterating or substituting samples, or by simply abstaining from drug use for a few days. The test will screen for cocaine, marijuana, heroin, codeine, morphine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, methamphetamine, ecstasy, Molly, phencyclidine, that's PCP, and that'll be voluntary in the first year, but in the 2014-2015 school year, it will be mandatory. All students will give hair up for the test. And if parents want to, they can pay an additional fee and have alcohol screened for. That won't be mandatory, though. That's just, kid might be drinking, you got to pay extra to check that out, right? Now, the hair testing does detect drugs for a longer window of time. It's not as discriminatory when it comes to marijuana users as is the metabolite testing, where the metabolites of other drugs flush in a few days. Marijuana sticks around for a week or two. With hair testing, the drugs pretty much are detectable. Problem with hair testing is it's discriminatory toward African Americans and people of Mediterranean descent. You get that thick, curly, kinky hair, that tends to not only have a higher rate of maintaining the drug metabolites, but also higher rates of false positives. But it's not like black folks are discriminated against anyway when it comes to drugs. That's sarcasm, people. So that's one of the attitudes. One attitude is this idea that we're giving the kids a way out, a way to resist peer pressure. If there's a drug test, they know they could get caught. Well, by God, they'll resist peer pressure. Another attitude that's getting to be very prevalent is well, I got to do it. If I got to do it, you got to do it. This one, Nancy Kahn, she's a parent whose son is a junior at the school, said she welcomes the program and wishes the school had done it sooner. Quote, I just went back to work and I had to do it. It's a way of life now. End quote. It's a way of life now. Gosh, everybody's got to, surrender their Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, against unreasonable search and seizures and against self-incrimination. Gosh, everybody's doing it. Remember that old thing parents used to say, gosh, if everybody was jumping off a cliff, would you do it too? Well, it looks like we are. looks like we are. Gosh, we started with the air traffic controllers and the train conductors for safety-sensitive reasons, of course. Want to make sure they're not high on the job. And then it became, well, gosh, anybody who has a job that might be safety sensitive. And then it became, well, gosh, anybody who might have a job. And then it became, oh, well, anybody who might not have a job and might be applying for unemployment benefits because everybody, they're going to have to test if they get a job. And, well, my gosh, let's check the kids in the high school, too, at least if they're going out for football, because that's dangerous, right? We don't want a bunch of high kids running around on the football field. And, well, while we're at it, let's drug test the kids that are trying out for any extracurricular activity, because then it'll be the carrot and stick approach. Then we can say, gosh, kids, if you take drugs, you can't be in choir anymore. You can't be in the chess club anymore. You can't be in the FFA anymore. We'll drug test we'll drug test all the kids. Oh, gosh, that's unconstitutional. Unless we're a private school, and then we'll go ahead and drug test all the kids. It's a way of life now, you see. The superintendent of Catholic schools for Cincinnati said the decision to provide drug testing at LaSalle was made with the knowledge and support of the Catholic schools office. They were not the first to do this. St. John's Jesuit High School in Toledo did mandatory testing of all students last year. And the spokesman from St. John said the program has gone well. He says, the program's not a gotcha. Quote, we're here to help our students. This is not something we use to point fingers. Many companies and organizations require pre-employment and random drug testing. This is a way of life for many Americans. By helping our young men make prudent, faith-filled decisions that are good for the present, we're preparing them for their future too. So not only is it a way of life, it's also for their own good. To get them used to the idea of giving up their Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. This is also reinforced by the DEA. Spokesman Rich Isaacson said, this is a useful tool for combating peer pressure. It gives students another way to say no to drugs and alcohol. And they point out that private schools have more legal options because it's an enrollment contract with a parent rather than, the government, forcing everyone to go to school, right? So that allows them to get away with this where it wouldn't work in a public school. The Lakota schools in Butler County mentions they also do things like bringing in drug dogs for random searches. And so there you go. So this is the idea, right? So you got the basics. You got the basics here. It's good for the kids because it helps them resist peer pressure. It's a way of life here in America anyway. You might as well just, resistance is futile. And it's preparing them for the future because it is the way of life. Well, people much smarter than myself, much more educated on how teenagers work, people in the American Academy of Pediatrics in 1996 said that they should not do this, that there should be no involuntary testing of adolescents for drugs of abuse. And they reaffirmed this in 2006, lest you think I'm just picking something, cherry picking from the 20th century here. No, they reaffirmed this a decade later, even after technology changed, after many more studies came out. They have a policy statement called Testing for Drugs of Abuse in Children and Adolescents, and they rule against it. They oppose involuntary testing. Now, in their opposition, they say proponents of drug testing claim the existence of school or home-based drug testing will help adolescents refuse drugs and provide legitimate reasons to resist peer pressure to use drugs. Although these claims are not yet proven. Claims have not been proven whatsoever. And yet, in 2011, thanks to the folks at Students for Sensible Drug Policy, we found this study. Yet another study shows student drug testing doesn't work. This was a 2003 study. National Institutes of Drug Abuse found no difference between levels of drug use at schools that test their students and those that do not. And opponents of student drug testing for random reasons or just for going to school include not only the American Academy of Pediatrics, but also the National Education Association, the Association for Addiction Professionals, the American Public Health Association, the National Association of Social Workers, and the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. But it makes the parents feel good. The parents think it works, and so nobody's really opposing it at any sort of level that might bring an end to this barbarity. The worst part to me is this idea that parents have, well, gosh, I got a pee test at work. Everybody's doing it. Is the worst excuse. You wouldn't accept that excuse from your kids. Why did you do pot? Well, everybody's doing it. Some reason that excuse doesn't work for smoking pot, but it does work for drug testing. Everybody's doing it. The solution to your oppression is not the oppression of others. How about we start questioning why you have to take that drug test in the first place? Did it stop you from doing drugs? Is it stopping anyone from doing drugs? Drugs still exist. Drug users have jobs. We'll talk more about this in hour 2. Thanks for joining us here in hour 1. For everyone here at 420 Radio, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you